Good morning, friends, and welcome to session 3 covering categories and methods of procurement. Now, before I proceed, let me take up again few housekeeping issues because I could see from the list there are many new members who have registered for this program. The very first thing would be that I want to be sure that everybody is able to hear me. If someone has problem or those who are able to hear me, if they can just send a quick chat, I think that will be great to give me confidence that you're all able to hear me. Now, another thing is that this session would be of 45 minutes, but depending on the interest, we could extend it. And then followed by 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A. So keep your questions ready for the Q&A session. Now, another thing I also want to talk about the guidelines. As you know, the guidelines for getting the certifications. All the members, all the participants who are appearing for PDPP, Professional Diploma in Public Procurements, are expected to complete their assignments for each module. So I hope those people who are registered with ISM-India just sending their assignments to us. So we look forward to your assignments, at least for 2 modules which we have already completed. So based on that, then you can carry on with the module 3, 4, 5. What we plan to do, we will be covering 6 modules by March. I think we hope to finish all the 6 modules. And then this will be followed by 2 specialized areas. The specialized area which we are trying to cover from ISM-India would be, one would be e-procurement, because I feel e-procurement is a very key thing to understand the technology part is a must for everyone. And second, I think what we will cover in the specialization would be the procurement methodology, how UN agencies or international agencies follow it. So that flavor would be given around. So those are the 2 modules we'll take on the specialized one, and the rest 6 would be the first 6 as per the book around. Now let me also recap for the benefit of those who have joined us today, first time. So far we had done 2 sessions. Session 1 was relating to understanding the importance of procurement and public procurement. We tried to cover around what is private sector procurement, what is public sector procurement. When I look back at my careers from the private sector to public sector and now back doing consultancy for private and public, 2 are different words around, although the concepts is same. Again, let me make it very clear for the public sectors, the funding is coming from the public. It's a taxpayer money. There has to be transparencies. So, and I mean, it is not only buying of the goods and services, they play a key role, I would say, in promoting the economic growth as well. So the people involved in public procurement have a lot to do around. And in today's session, again, I want to welcome you all. Today's session is about categories and methods of procurement. This is a very interesting subject, I would call it, compared to the first 2. First 2 was very managerial type things to understand the framework, why do we need a framework, what is public procurement, but today you'll be going into nuts and bolts. Today and the next session which we have on 14, these are basically the nuts and bolts of the public procurement. You will be walking through, we'll be walking through the plethora of various terms. I remember my days 20 years back when somebody asked me, what is purchasing, what is procurement, what is expression of interest, what is tender notice, what is bid notice? Wide range of terms are there. So you will find, where should I use RFI? Where should I use RFP? Where should I use RFQ? Where I should use RFT? Some people call ICB. For the same thing, there are different terms around. Very basic thing I would call around, some people like in the American system call solicitation document. Some people call bidding documents. Some call tender documents. All have different meaning. Let me make very clear. I know we use interchangeably. So this is the subject which we are going to cover today. Again, let me emphasize, it's a plethora of wide range of terms. I'll try to make clarification for each one of them, where to use, when to use. So well, friends, with this, I welcome you to the session covering module 3, categories and methods of procurement. So please keep your questions, any clarifications, and in case you are still not able to hear, raise your hand. I will try to see how best we can help you. So with this I start to the next now slides. I hope you're able to see the slides around. Now today's agenda. So today's agenda is categorization of procurements. The very first thing, I'm sure you must have seen many of your colleagues, your peers, some are specializing in, if I look in the private sector, the categorization is very broad. There's like direct and indirect. But here in the public sector, the categorization is buying of goods, buying of services, and procuring of works. So there are three broad categories around. So we'll go through those details. The next thing is to talk through the procurement cycle. I know I touched it in the last session, but again, I'll walk through with you from beginning, from the day you get the requirements, from the day you get the requisitions, till completion, till the payments. In the private sector, we call it source to pay. So from the sourcing stage till the payment stage, the complete chain is called the procurement cycle. Another key thing comes up in the third point, or bullet point you can see in the today's agenda, empanelment. How do I get the suppliers around? How do I identify the suppliers around? So those empanelments, identifying suppliers, putting them into database. Again, I want to clarify the term supplier versus vendor. The term is vendor and supplier both. They remain suppliers till you are not done business with them. The moment you're done business with them and they get into your real database, into ERP or e-procurement, they are called vendors. Those of you who are using ERP, I'm sure they must be aware, whether it's Oracle or whether it's SAP or any system around, they call vendor. Vendor means those who are really active with you, with whom you're doing business. Until they are not active, we call them suppliers. Now, removal of them, obviously sometimes you're not happy. You want to get the exit strategy for them. Blacklisting of suppliers. Now the blacklisting, whom to do, how to do, and since it's a public environment, one has to be careful how to blacklist them, on what situation you can blacklist them. The next bullet point which covers around, which we'll be touching, is the different type of bidding systems. So the different type of bidding systems we'll be walking through. Again, plethora of acronyms. And I can see each organization has a different way to explain around. Like if I see the World Bank, they'll call International Competitive Bidding, ICB. Some organization call RFT, Request for Tender. So different terms are there around, RFI, EOI, some people call Request for Expression of Interest, REOI, different ways are there around. The reason for so many terms also is their confusion. This field is still evolving. So each organization has set up their own terms. So this is evolving, and now worldwide, the glossary of terms are being developed around. In the private sector, the glossary is there. So those who are dealing with ISM or CPSM or any other, there is a glossary of terms which is used worldwide. But in the public sector, I think the initiative has to come with a glossary, right glossaries for that. Now learning different procurement methods. So we'll walk through the different procurement methods. I know many of you already know single envelope methods, two envelope methods, direct contracting, negotiated contracting, all those things around. And the last what we'll cover today is the framework agreements, rate contract. I know in India the rate contract is very popular. DGS&D does, many public sector does it. In the private sector nobody talks of rate contract, they talk of framework agreements. And based on the framework agreements, they could have umbrella agreements around, you could call it. And based on umbrella agreement you could call off whenever the need comes. So in short, for today's agendas, objective is to enlighten you on concepts and approaches to use different types of procurement methods. So again, I'll walk through all the possible procurement methods, which is a big number when I see from the public sector side. So we'll walk through it. Please keep your questions ready on that. Now first thing is the categories part. We talk of goods, we talk of consultancies. Actually, normally we call services. In the private sector we call services. But here services have got two components, consultancy and non-consultancy. I know we'll try to clarify what is consultancy and what is non-consultancy, but Both are services. Then there's the works. Works, majority time when I have used in the past, it was always taken as civil works. But in this environment, as per the book around, you will find there's another one also, electrical, mechanical, the power plants, all those things, they're also part of the works around. Now, the next bullet is all about when there is a confusion when to use this. Maybe I can come back later on this. Services is intangible task. They're not physical. Somebody is hiring a consultant. Somebody is coming as a trainer. It's intangible. You can't carry them. You can't transport them. That satisfy the needs of consumers and business users. While when I look at the goods, they are tangible. They are physical. You can see them. You can hear them. You can smell them. You can taste them like a food. If there's a food, you can taste them also, or touch them. They can be transported. So those are called the goods. But there's a continuum. There is either it is a pure goods or pure services. You won't find there's always something incidental. So this continuum I'll try to show you. Now in this continuum, what you see around is one side is a trowel, like a shovel thing, which is a pure goods. Other side is a service, like employment agencies. Even airline services is pure service. But in between you find in this continuum, there are a combination of goods and services. And your day-to-day life when you are doing contracting, you will find it is always a combination. So one question comes, if it's a combination of goods and services, I get a machine, I have to get it installed, people have to be trained, it's a combination. So now which one method I should follow? Should I follow up goods or should I follow up services? We'll walk through that. So like a restaurant, you get the food, plus there's the service. Somebody comes, gives you good service. So it's a combination of both things around. Ambience is also there around. So this is a combination of that around. So in this continuum, one side is pure goods, one side is pure service, and the center you find is a combination of those two around. Now let me again emphasize on this clarity around goods. I think we have already talked around. So the goods when you buy and the tangible, they come with transportations, is a component of service, insurance, because you want to insure them for theft and losses, or fire, and then training. I mean, you got a highly costly machine around, somebody has to be trained on that. That is a component of service attached with the goods. Now we come to the services part. In the services, we have consultancy and non-consultancy. I mean, in the beginning I said services are non-physical. Now the main difference I would call around between consultancy and non-consultancy is, when you do consultancy, you're really looking for professionals. You're looking for specialists. And when you give a contract, you're giving with a name. You are saying, okay, so and so person will work on it. Even when you give a consultancy to a big company, the guy may give you a fresh trainer, fresh guy from the college as a consultant. You say, no guys, when the contract was made, I was looking for this person. Because you look at the CV of the people around. So when you look at the CV, you say, guys, I'm paying you just because so and so person I liked it. So consultancy is really about intelligentsias, about people, skills, and all those things around. So it's linked with the person. Non-consultancy, you want cleaning services, you want security services. You're not very particular which person is coming as a security guard. You're looking for the output. So output is defined, and based on that, you get non-consultancy services around. And non-consultancy services outputs are exactly same whether you go to X or Y, if both are reasonably good. While in consultancy, person to person is very important. Output will vary. Results will vary. So this is where it comes the difference around. Now, I think the non-consultancy, they are not identified by name, as I told you, while consultancy is identified by name, the persons. Next comes the works part. I know most of us, when we look around, I remember my days many years back, when works mean, we always think civil works. But it's not the civil works. Anything which involves designing, constructions, fabrications, erections, you're putting up a big power plant. So it is not only setting up a highway or something, mechanical, electrical works, all those power plants, factories, industrial estates, they are all civil works. So they are all, the part of the works around. So works has got two components, civil works and other things. There's another word called product. So when you guys buy, you're not buying simple goods. You get the goods, it is physical, it has service, it has symbolic attributes, the way it is packed around, so it is called products around. This is why I remember the days when we were trying to build up our coding system. We never built the coding system for goods. We said we will call them as a product. That's why those of you who are aware of it, United Nations Standard Product and Standard Classification, it is called UNSPC. So it is called a product around. So product has got something more than simple goods around. Now, come the question of distinction between procurement of works and goods. When you say I'm buying something, even let's say you're putting up a power plant, there's a goods component and works components around. So I would say the key distinction is if the value of the material is more than 50% of the total cost of works. That's the key dividing factor. Treat them as procurement of goods around. I remember my days when we had a big project from Iraq long time back of $89 million, and I was the chairman for the supply chain. It had setting up big power plants and small connections here and there, but the cost of the goods were a major component. The civil works was much smaller, so we treated them as procurement of goods around. So keep that distinctions around. When you get confused, it has goods, it has works, it has this. So keep in mind which is the major part around. Same thing can happen when you're buying goods and services. You're buying software services. But along with the software services, you're also buying goods, some computers and servers. But if the cost of the services is much more, that's a dominating factor. Treat them as a service. Another categorization is, so far the categorization we took was very simple way, goods, services and works. But now we're trying to do the categorization the way the budgets are made around. So the budget is made, I'm sure many of the organizations have capital budget, revenue budget. So the capital budget means which is meant for buying capital goods. Assets, so it's basically for the assets. The revenue procurement is the one when you're dealing with those budgets, like we had one program with Delhi government some time back. So they have a budget for the capital to buy for the health machinery, but they have a revenue procurement to take care of managing them for day-to-day operation of them. That's the revenue part. It's operational budget. So one is for the assets, one is for the operations. Now on the basis of source of procurement also comes up the categorization. Is it bought locally? Is it bought through the foreign procurements? The key difference is when I do indigenous procurement, it does not mean the foreign suppliers can't bid. Foreign supplier might be based here. Foreign supplier might have an agency here. They can also bid like a local supplier. So if I'm doing in India, it will be all in rupees. They might be importing it, but all bidding is done indigenously. While the foreign procurement means when I feel these items are not available locally at all, even if one or two are there, but I'm not happy with their qualities around, then I advertise worldwide. I get the foreign procurements, people who are in abroad from X and Y countries, and we try to compare the prices, and the best bidder gets a contract. That's how it is there. Now, when we talk of foreign procurement, then there's a payment involved around. I'm sure you already know the letter of credit LOC part around, those payment approaches comes up. Another segmentation comes. So one was on the budgeting part, you heard about the capital. But now I'm looking around as a part of this market segment, nature. So one is just buying capital equipment. Second is buying of IT hardware and software. I remember when I did the procurement of ERP system, and then we had a lot of hardwares to buy around. It's a different ball game. Procurement of spares for maintenance. This you must have seen many times. And procurement of defense equipment. Let me walk through quickly on this. When you're buying capital equipments, let's say I'm buying CAT scan machine, I'm buying X-ray machine, these are all assets. But along with that, I need training of the people, that's a component. Installation, commissioning is also part of that around, but I'm buying them as a capital equipment, it's more of a goods. But in IT, hardware and software is a very tricky word around. If the software is a dominating factor or the hardware is the dominating factor. That's where we need to look around. Spares is very tricky. I know in the UN we used to have a long-term arrangement with Toyotas. So when we had to buy the spares, the only choice was to buy from Toyotas, pay them at double the price, because most of the automobile company or any company, they make major business not from the major item around but from the spares itself. While in Marutis, I can see in India, I know this filter, air filter is coming from Purolator. Can I buy directly instead of buying through the Maruti? Can I save my funds? So one has to really have a good market knowledge when we're trying to buy the spares. But the key objective has to be kept in mind that the continuity of the supply chain. I should not buy something which is of a poor quality and affects my running of the equipment around. The last one is the procurement of defense equipment. This is very tricky. So when I came from the US, I had a chance to work with the defense group around sometime. That is a really different way. Sometimes they say because of national interest, they can't advertise something. There are many things around. So when it comes to procurement of defense equipment, writing specification is a big ball game. How do I write the specification of a big guns? So the specifications are more performance based. What are you expecting from them? If you want to write in a generic way, you need to spell out what are the output expected from this. For each item, then they have to be tried, they have to be tested. So buying of these defense equipment is also not an easy ball game. It's a very complex around. I think I already have explained some of the clarifications, so I can maybe go through fast on this. The capital equipment, as I said to you in the beginning, is of capital natures. It includes obviously some first construction of installations, maintenance. The first maintenance also will be covered on the capital budget. Procurement should ensure trouble-free operation. That's the key thing. So as a procurement person or as a supply chain person, your job is to ensure that this is trouble-free. Now the revenue part is expenditure, as I told you, is all about maintenance of the installed assets. I have got the assets, how to keep them running, that's the revenue expenditure. Indigenous and foreign procurement, I told you already in the beginning, as the name indicates, whether I buy from the local sources or foreign sources. Procurement of IT equipments, keep in mind the one key thing, no disruption. We have become so dependent on this IT system. The people who are involved in buying IT system and software, the key thing is 24/7 support. You might have made big saving, but if you're not able to assure 24/7 support, the procurement was a faulty, I would call it. Same thing about procurement of spares, and the last one is defense procurement, which I have again mentioned earlier, performance-based specifications. Here is the cycle. This is again goes back 25 years back. I made it and I still love it, and it works. I used it very beginning in 92 for training my team in the UNDP and the UN team around. Very first starts identifying needs. You need to define, somebody comes, identify the needs, write the specification. Now here you may find the terms called TOR, terms of reference. Those who are from international agencies, they use the word TOR for buying services from, basically services. SOW, statement of work. It could again, plethora of terms around SOW, statement of work is with services. But if I say statement of works, it is dealing with the works, civil service. Choose a procurement method. Which method I should use it? The next one comes solicitation document. Now this is where you will find, because being in the US, we were used to this term solicitation. I know when I come back to India, people talk of bid documents, tender documents. So anyway, this was the solicitation documents around. And then we talk about seek, clarify, and close the offers around. So you have all those things, modality, when to open, how to open, and after that you evaluate the offers around. We're showing it a globe because offers were received worldwide. Internal approvals, you need to get approvals. Being in the public sector, you need internal approval. And after approval, negotiate the contract. I know this is a very touchy word, negotiate. Some organization feel no negotiations. We done the competition, we got the lowest price. Award of the contract is based on lowest price. What is there to negotiate? So even in the World Bank new guideline, which they're trying to work it out, they're coming with a negotiation approach also. While in the private sector, if I have to hire anybody, first quality I look around whether the person is a good negotiator or not. Manage the contract. And the last is evaluate the performance. Guys, you've done the very good, you've done the contract manage, and at the end of the day, you want to really record it. Before I do blacklisting or any of the supplier, I want to evaluate whether I had a good experience or a bad experience. How was the rating of the supplier? That's how the chain goes on. Next come empanelment. I know it's a very word around, very administrative word, empanelment. While in the private sector we'll call supplier evaluation, supplier identification. Here we call empanelment. So identifying the supplier and empaneling them is very important for the limited tendering, because you will see soon there's a one method called limited tendering. Emergency procurement, direct contracting. You need empaneled suppliers who are good, qualified suppliers. So this helps us to skip bid qualification step. And now this empanelment can be done by expression of interest, EOI, some people may call REOI, some call EOI, and request for information. I say, guys, please express your interest. We buy these items, companies comes to us. I have a criteria for evaluating them. Then if I need extra information, I look through RFI. So this is how it goes on. Now these need to be reviewed annually. Poor performers should be deleted from list. Obviously the world is changing, the world is evolving, new suppliers are coming in. You can't stick on with the same list of suppliers for a lifetime. So this has to be evaluated, updated on a regular basis. And lastly come the banning and blacklisting. Obviously there's a misconduct. Somebody is violating the code of ethics. Somebody is doing fraud part of it. Somebody is doing collusion. Somebody is doing corruptions. So in those situations, there's a blacklisting around. So those companies, you can't do business with them at all. Here the same thing I put down in a graphical way. Now recognize the need for the supplier selection. Identify the key sourcing requirements. Determine the sourcing strategies. Identify potential suppliers. Then I say there has to be a limit of supplier in the selection pool also. And this is more from the private sector, I would call it. In the private sector, we always say rationalize the supplier list. More the merrier is not the correct thing. If I got 100 suppliers, on the other side I got 10 suppliers, which is the best one. So there is a rationalization of supplier also. Determine the method of supplier evaluation selection. Select supplier, reach an agreements around. So this is all about empanelment, but in a graphical way. So far we have covered the categorization part, and a little bit about this. Now we move to the bidding systems. So the bidding system is the very first one. Let me say, we always say, give me technical commercial proposals. There's a technical proposal, there's a commercial proposal. We need to evaluate them before we say you are suitable or not suitable. So my request to you, there are two approaches around. One is called single bid. Second is called two envelope systems around. So in the single envelope system is suitable for simple off-the-shelf item. The item which are very standard. They're off the shelf, available. I'm buying bearing, ready-made stuff. And each one conforms to its standard, international standards. So technical specs are simple and standard. Technical dates and prices on same envelope. So I could get in a single bid, give me the technical specs and the price on the same envelope. While in the two envelope system, we keep technical separate, price separate. Because there's a risk in that if technical part and the price part are in the same page, I could be biased with the price first before I look at the technical. So in the public sector environments, we don't want to get biased with that. We say, guys, first look at the technical part. And if we feel technically it makes my purpose, serves my purpose, then I compare them on the price. So if technically they are not meeting my requirements, why should I open the price? So this is what we call the two envelope system. Then there's a pre-bid conference around. Now this is a word called pre-bid conference, pre-proposal conference also. So there's a word called pre-bid, pre-proposal. Pre-bid means for the goods and works around, but if it is services, we call pre-proposal conference. Now there are sometimes technically, commercially, very requirements are technically complex requirements around, and I'm not sure I remember a case we were doing the windmill project for one of the countries, complex project, and each windmill was of whatever 50 or 60 megawatts, very big size. Now we write some specification, as you know, most of the time we take the cut and paste specification of any supplier. But if we go with that type of bidding, everybody can read this specification is of so and so supplier. Even the name might have been deleted. So in those situations, we want to do a pre-bid conference. In the pre-bid conference, supplier comes, they make their observations, they come and give you comments. It helps you to improve your specification. So in short, you're trying to create a level field. Otherwise, there's no level field. If I take somebody's specs, remove the name, go with the bidding, it's not a level playing field. If you want to have a level playing field for complex things, it's good to do pre-bid conference, pre-proposal conference. It serves two purposes. A level field is one. Second, you are able to improve your specs around. Make it much more generic. Encourage the competitions part also. Become more transparent that way around. Now question comes next is system for qualifying bids. Obviously this is what we use for the again complex procurements around. Not for the simple procurement, not for the standard items. One could be the post-qualification, which is a single stage. Second could be the pre-qualification, two stage. Post-qualification is, it is built into the same process. I've gone through the technical evaluation, I've gone to the price proposal, then I do the post-qualification. I say, guys, oh, we can live with this guy, this is great. But then there's the next one comes the pre-qualification part. It's a two stage. That means first I have to pre-qualify. Very commonly done for civil works. You can imagine pre-qualification is not done and you get tons of bidders who have never done the building, who have never done the highways, but they come with the lowest price. It's very difficult and sometimes become too political. So it's always good to pre-qualify them, whether they meet the expectations or not. And then when you do the real bidding part, it only goes to qualified suppliers. Another term is expression of interest. The purpose of expression of interest is used to shortlist the supplier. I remember we used to make catalog for motor vehicles, we used to make catalog for office equipment, for the whole UN family. So we used to create, okay, these are the items we buy regularly. We used to go first to the whole world in every advertisement, every media, every news. Guys, our volume is so much, $140 million, this much. Those interested worldwide, and we used to pass on these type of requests to even embassies and others around, even trade directories, everyone's around, chambers of commerce. We say, guys, come and express your interest. So companies will come with interest, they'll send us the information, whatever we wanted, they'll give us. Then we'll try to see. It helped us in identifying the shortlisting of the companies. And this could be followed by extra RFI if I need to get more clarifications. So these are done in the early stages of procurements. EOI is very useful when number of players, the market size and approach to solving a problem is largely unknown. Sometimes we don't know the market. Like in automobile, I know the market. Who are the key players? I may not do EOI. But for some items, I'm buying syringes, tons of suppliers. So what do? I'm buying gloves, again many suppliers. I might like to do EOI to make very clear that these are the good suppliers. Now here is the word I'm trying to clarify, the tender and the bid and solicitation document. Solicitation document is based on the standard bidding document. You have standard bidding document, each of you must be having standard bidding documents. The World Bank also has got a standard bidding document. So based on the standard bidding document, you make your solicitation document to solicit the offer. So you are basically soliciting the offer based on the bidding document. So that's what we call the bidding document. Now it's two parts. Supplier is giving the bid to you, while you are asking the act of giving the bid, and other side you are asking as a tender. Again, some of these terms have relevance to some country where it started around. Like in the US, most of the people we call bids and solicitation document. While in Europe and this, the tender word was very common. Some of the British colony, the word tender is still used around. It's used sometimes more commonly in the civil works around. So those are terms very often used that way. Here I've tried to put same thing just to brush up your lingo on this. You might be seeing on the heading RFI, request for information, expression of interest, request for proposals, request for quotations, request for deals, tender. Many of them, they are used. I learned this not much back. This is when I was based in Europe, I learned it. But no one in use in the US, not much in India also, not in the Asian countries I see. But there are many terms around. Again, I'm saying this field is still evolving. And I'm sure there's a need to come up with a common lingo for this. Now what does the RFI does around? Very beginning stage. I remember when I was developing the specification for ERP, before I go then for the bidding, I didn't know head and tail of ERP. Okay, then what I did was ask for information from all the big players, read them, understand them, talk to my stakeholders, then build up the requirements. So that was a wonderful thing for me to learn something. I get the RFI. Purpose was to develop the product needs, service needs, supplier list. Then the next stage 2 is I do expression of interest. I know what the needs are. Then once I know the needs, I want to do supplier part. I want to get the expression interest for them. Are they interested or not? EOI I do it. Then even after doing EOI, I'm not happy with some information. I could follow with RFI at stage 3. But then there's an RFP, an RFQ, an RFT, and RFP. You know very well when you're looking for a solution. Again, I know sometimes it used to be confused. RFP and RFT, which is a tender, or you could call ICB, International Competitive Bidding, or Invitation to Bid, ITB they call sometimes, ITB. So one is for the people say, okay, this is for goods and this is for services. I won't call that way around. If something you're looking for a solution, you're not sure how to do it, RFP is the one. The name is P, proposal. Other one, you may call tender, you may call bid, you may call whatever, where you got a defined specification. Something is very clearly defined, you go with that approach. So I've tried to cover up a little bit on the brushing on this side, but certainly there's a need to come up with a big glossary of terms on this. Now let's walk through the modes of procurements around. Open bidding. Open, the name indicate, open. I'm advertising it. I'm not going to X and Y. I'm giving chance to everybody. But in that chance, it could be ICB or NCB. So these are the terms also used by the World Bank also. International competitive bidding. National competitive bidding. So international competitive bidding is, I'm going internationally. All the players worldwide can bid for it. Other one is national. That means my bidding is national. But does not mean the foreign suppliers who are based in my country, they can't bid. They can also bid into NCB. But ICP means I'm internationally allowing everybody come and bid. That's the way terminology comes. Limited tender inquiry. So the limited means I'm going to limited tenders. I'm sending to only qualified suppliers. Single tender means is basically no competitions. Single sourcing. It's a proprietary items. Nobody else makes it. There's only one supplier who makes it. So that's the situation where the proprietary items, it is single tender in. Now that single tender inquiry, and this I will explain it furthermore. Direct contracting is also more like without getting quotations. Some emergency has come up, some disaster has come up, I may do direct contract. Or sometimes there's a committee of people who go and buy together. So one guy from finance, one from procurement, one from user, they go and buy. But then there are thresholds. The next one is framework contracts. Some people call framework agreements. Because I know it's a term very confusing sometimes. Because when we say contract, everything is well defined. Specifications are defined, the price is defined, the quantity is defined. But in the framework, sometimes the quantity is not defined. You just say, okay, I'm going to buy 10,000 air conditioners. But technically you may buy only 500. So that is a framework agreement, and which becomes contract, call of contracts when you really place an order for that. Rate contract also, I know we use the word contract, but the rate contract like DGSMD does, some government body does it. They make a rate contract for X and Y items on the presumption that we are going to buy so many pieces of items. The prices are defined based on that. And the rate contract and framework agreement is not necessarily with one supplier, it could be with multiple suppliers. I remember in the UN we had framework agreements. EU does framework agreements with many suppliers. If they meet the expectations, so you have multiple choices. You could do a mini competition among them and get the items around. The last one is a repeat order. You bought something, after 3 months you feel, oh my gosh, I need more. I missed something. Are you going to do the same bidding again process? And you know, public process takes 3 to 6 months. And that's what people are scared around sometimes. They say, can I repeat my old orders? There are some ways. That's what I will touch on this part. Now, I've already given you flavor of those terms, but let me walk through this. ICB. When you feel there is not sufficient number of supply sources in my country, absence of sufficient number of suppliers, threshold is very high. Now, threshold will vary quite a lot. I can see from the list of participants. They are from different backgrounds, but if they are from Government of India, they are from UN agencies, they are from the World Bank, or they are from international agencies, each one has different thresholds. In the case of Government of India, it's spelled out in the general framework around, so it's already there. So if threshold is more than that, you have to go with ICB. Technical specs calls for compliance with international standards. All bidders are allowed to bid around, so in that situation. When we come to NCB, its competition is limited to local supplier, process same as ICB. The notice period, I think this is a question comes very often. Are we giving a fair chance to the people around? NCB 4 weeks is good enough. ICB you need a little bit 5 to 6 weeks. This is how I will look at it. Next one comes limited tender inquiries. Now here we are sending the bidding document only to registered suppliers, approved suppliers, the way around. Now before resorting this, one should check the demand is not split into small quantities. Sometimes what happens is the threshold of limited is lower. So sometime I know we used to check it. We had a wonderful system in our ERP. Some people will split the contract. So they don't have to go and get approval from X and Y. They go on splitting the contract month by month, but when you add over the year, it used to exceed, which may require different type of competitions. So that's also our system used to check around the people are ensuring compliance. I mean, again, I want to say in public sectors, compliance is the key thing. So when anybody comes for investigation, compliance is the first thing. So this is where one has to be careful. Now, reasonable number of registered suppliers should be there around. If one is excluded, then suppose if I feel, I want to exclude this from the list around. You need approval from the competent authorities around, because you can't make your own decision. It depends what authority has been given to you. So this moves around. But again, this is used for urgency. Now here comes single tender inquiries. Basically for proprietary items. There's no one else, one supplier who makes it. You are left with no choices, then you have to go to that. But again, keep in mind, it needs a regular review. The market is not stable once for all. It's not static, it's revolving, it's changing. New supply sources are coming in. But sometimes there's an emergencies around. So that case also I can use like a PSC approach, proprietary approach. I could go to the single tender and get the business done. But in such cases, you are supposed to send a quarterly report to Central Vigilance Commission, CVC. The next comes direct contracting. But this is purely, I would call it a petty purchases, which is less than 15,000. Anything of the lower values, single contract of 15,000, but cumulative over a year should not exceed 5 lakh rupees per unit, per business unit. I'm not talking of the one ministry or one business unit. So each business unit should not be spending more than 5 lakh per year, and each transaction should not be more than 15,000. So this is a thing which is called petty purchase, which is normally done through, nowadays in the private sector, through purchasing cards. So purchasing cards are there, which are given to the managers around, they're given to the operational people. They can, and those purchasing cards are well smart cards around, which ensure that you can't use it for buying some other food item or something. It is only for those items which you are allowed. So those cards are used very often like a credit card. So it cuts down your paperwork. So authorized executive has to ensure due diligence and provide a certificate, and somebody has to give a certificate. I have taken care of due diligence and the item is of good price and good quality. Same approach can be also done by committee around. Because this amount was 15,000. But if amount is more than that, each transaction, say up to 1.5 lakhs, then I form a committee of 3 people, one from the user department, one from finance and one procurement, and they could do collectively procure it. But again, they have to give jointly a record of certificates. This is a beautiful thing. Again, this is very close to my heart and I always use it. Kraljic matrix. He is the man, the Peter, who came up with the concept of strategic procurement. Procurement is not a transaction. I know public sector is still running around with the transaction. Compliance, and compliance word means transaction. Step 1, step 2, step 3, you have to follow the steps around. If you are missing any steps, you have to justify those around. But in the private sector, this is the key thing around. We do the spend part, we do the spend management, we do the spend analysis, trying to define which are the routine items, which are the bottleneck items, and which are strategic items, which are leverage items. And depending on the items, which category they fall in, we try to use the methodology. Like here you can see routine items, contracting, long-term contract, umbrella agreements, office supplies, low-value items, and we used to call it 80-20 concepts. So in the first 2 vertically, it will be covering around only routine plus bottleneck item will cover only 20% values, while leverage and strategic item put together will cover 80% of my value. So contracting means I make a long-term agreement, I make an umbrella agreement, and this is where you see many of the government bodies are coming with a rate contract, a framework agreements. So for routine item, I want to automate it, I want to cut down my paperwork. This is where they are. While in the strategic item, I make a long-term partnership. So this is where they are around. Leverage item, because this is the area where there are too many suppliers, risk is very less, I want to get the best out of it. So the same framework agreement, now from the graph I'm trying to explain it in this way. These are long-term agreements, usually for 1 year. To me, 1 year is very short, personal, my opinion. But I know you are all stuck with your own rules and regulations. While in the UN bodies, we were allowing 2 years initially, but this could be extended up to 3rd year, depending on performance. The reason being, sometime identifying a supplier to make an agreement takes 6 months, and then after 1 year, you are again going back to the same role. I think it needs change around. Now this is more like a standing offer, more like an umbrella offer. And with the minimum commitment, the quantity, this, and then we call out, or we invoke through call of contract. The word is call off. Don't get bogged down with the word off. Off does not mean offing. It's call off mean I'm starting with invoking it. So this is used for common user items, not suited for bottleneck and strategic items. Then RC means again rate contracts are set up by DGS&D. Some of the ministries, some of the railways, and this I know they also have got their own rate contracts. Process should be open bidding. Performance report should be recorded. If you're not recording the performance report, same bidders who gave a bad time to you last time will come again second time. So you need to record the performance as well, whether to give them a chance next time or not. Repeat order, this is the last slide of this one. Now repeat orders means, as I said to you in the beginning, you have bought something, now you need same thing after 3 months or 4 months, identical specs, but then you can use the same contract, but the restriction is to maximum 50% of the last order quantity, not the price, not the cost. So whatever you bought, let's say you bought, let's say 10,000 pieces, and now suddenly you feel I need 5,000 more, so up to 5,000 you can buy. Original order was placed on the lowest price, that factor is very important, and not more than 6 months old. If it is more than 6 months old, the market might have changed, the prices might have changed. I know in the IT business, the prices are changing every month. Here again, I want to touch you a little bit again back to the rate contract, the framework agreement. What we used to do around for the at least IT equipments, the prices are changing every month, the models are changing every month, so the item may not be identical. We used to make a long-term arrangement for the whole year, and our prices were linked with their market prices minus discount. So the price may go up or down, minus discount is our price. This is how we used to keep it much more active around. And again, I would say repeat orders, as per the guidelines of public procurement, should be rare case around. Well, friend, this one, again, I think I covered the whole, module 3, and the journey still goes on. As I said to you in the beginning, we'll be covering 6 modules. My plan is to cover module 4 on the 14th, and I hope I can finish by March all the 6 modules. And my request to all of you, those who are at least registered with ISM-India, please submit your assignments so that we can score it. And our plan is to provide you a project also. And I've got tons of projects from my previous career around. I want to share some projects with you as well on that. So my request to you is carry on with this. And now